Welcome back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypher Box, and guess who's back? That's right, it's the Ped Bull. You can see him on the screen. My old pal, the Ped Bull. I first introduced him when Canelo Alvarez failed his drug test back in February for clenbuterol, and this time he's accompanied by Billy Joe Saunders, who has recently failed a drug test for a substance called oxylofrene. Wow. Okay. So the first most obvious question is, what is oxylofrene? Yeah. Oxylofrene is a stimulant of the amphetamine class that was developed to treat hypertension, that's low blood pressure, in people who do not respond to conventional treatment. It is not widely used in the UK and is not a licensed drug in the US. Some firms use oxylofrene in so-called sports nutritional supplements, as it is thought to allow people to burn fat faster and lose weight. Okay, so what does oxylofrene do for you if you're a fighter? If you're a boxer like Billy Joe Saunders, what does it do for you? Right, this is what it says. Oxylofrene is thought to increase adrenaline production, producing endurance, focus, alertness, and heart rate, and increasing the oxygenation of blood. Okay, so where do the anti-doping agencies stand when it comes to this substance, yeah? Now, I was obviously searching out on the internet, researching for oxylofrene, and I found a Wikipedia article, and in that article, though it was explaining, which I will link in the description of the video, it had a little paragraph just dedicated to Billy Joe Saunders, funny enough. And it says, Billy Joe Saunders, boxing WBO middleweight champion, also tested positive for oxylofrene during a routine Vada testing. Oxylofrene is a banned substance in and out of competition by Vada, but is permitted out of competition by WADA and UKAD. Saunders' case is ongoing and he faces being stripped of his WBO world middleweight title as a possible boxing ban. Now, from what I understand, USADA have the same ruling as UKAD and WADA, which is it's permitted outside of competition but not in competition. Okay, so what do they mean by in competition and out of competition? Basically what they mean, in competition basically means that if you test positive within a 12-hour period before your fight, on the day of your fight, that means you have tested positive and you are cheat. Yeah, that basically it's against the rules, it's illegal. You can't be taking this particular substance 12 hours in the 12 hours prior to your fight, which means that means if the test was conducted just before the fight, or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours before the fight on the day, and then obviously the test results won't come out till afterwards, and you tested positive, that means you're dirty. Okay, but anything outside of that 12-hour period, even in your training camp, it's considered completely legal and you can use it as much as you want. Unlike that's WADA's and UKAD's stand on oxylofrene. Vada, on the other hand, who I think are probably the best anti-doping agency out there, Vada, on the other hand, consider it a banned substance and it should be banned. You're not allowed to use it in or out of competition. Basically, you're not allowed to use it at all, according to Vada. That's how they class it. Now, I'm going to start off with this video and give you what I think about this whole in-out competition nonsense, yeah? As far as I'm concerned, yeah, the minute you start training, you know, the minute you start your training camp for a fight, you are in competition, okay? Because even during training, you are competing against your opponent. You're both competing against each other to who can train hardest, who can push their body the hardest, who can prepare themselves, yeah, and get themselves in the best possible shape to get an advantage over your opponent come fight night. So that's still competition in my opinion, as far as I'm concerned. That's the way I look at it, yeah. And if one of you is taking a PED, then in my opinion, yeah, you're cheating. And if you test positive, you should be banned or suspended or whatever. Now, Billy Joe Saunders' team are claiming, that's Frank Warren's Queensberry Promotions, are claiming that Billy Joe Saunders was taking a decongestion nasal spray which contained oxylofrene, and that's why he popped dirty. I'm not buying this bullshit. Oh, seriously, it was like Canelo Alvarez. I didn't listen. With Canelo Alvarez, I said the same thing. Now, as you know, Canelo Alvarez tested for clenbuterol. Now, in Mexico, they use clenbuterol. They inject it into their livestock, into their meat, to make the meat more leaner, etc., and stuff like that. And his test results of clenbuterol were trace elements, and those trace elements apparently resembled that of someone who may have consumed contaminated meat. But here was my stance on that: is that you couldn't prove whether it was contaminated meat, or whether these trace elements were the indication of an end cycle of a 3 or 4 month usage of clenbuterol. Now, I know a lot of people are going to talk about this hair follicle test. I did my research on that. The Nevada State Athletics Commission didn't do that properly. First of all, they broke protocol. They obviously provided a WADA accredited lab to do the test on the hair follicle test, but what they did is they took the sample themselves and then provided it to the WADA lab. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get WADA to come and get the hair sample themselves. Second of all, why did you use WADA when you already had Vada doing the test? Why wouldn't you allow Vada, who originally found Canelo, who tested Canelo and found that he tested positive for clenbuterol? Why wouldn't you not just call Vada and say, Vada, take a hair sample of him and test it and give us the results? That's why I don't see, that's why when it comes to that hair follicle test, sorry, I'm not buying that, because you know what? They didn't follow protocol. Simple as that. All right. Now, getting back to Billy Joe Saunders. Okay. Billy Joe Saunders, what's the one thing we've always criticized Billy Joe Saunders throughout his career for? Is the fact that he doesn't live a fighter's life in between fights. Likes the pies, likes the pints. Look, recently he's been showing some real discipline, or what appeared to be real discipline, in his training, in his attitude, and keeping himself in good condition, even in between fights and stuff like that, keeping the weight off, etc., etc. Yeah, we've all been praising him for it. But what did I say earlier on? What does this product, this substance, do for you? It helps you cut weight. Yeah, it helps you to burn fat, which makes me wonder now, is it because Billy Joe Saunders been keeping himself in shape in between fights, or is it the fact that he's been taking oxylofrene, and which has been helping him burn fat in between fights? Now, here's a tweet that was put out by Victor Conte, and if you don't know who Victor Conte is a leading expert in PED abuse. He also knows how to cheat the system. He's helped a lot of athletes, from what I understand, get around how to use PEDs and not get caught. So he pretty much knows everything. He's an expert in it, right? Okay, and he put this tweet out, and he said, boxing lesson for BJ Saunders and UK anti-doping. Oxylofrene is a stimulant like amphetamine. This drug is banned in many parts of the world. Oxylofrene kills hunger and is known for its extreme weight loss effects. Oxylofrene can be dangerous and has no place in boxing at any time. Not only did Victor Conte put that tweet out, but Victor Conte also did an interview with Ring Magazine on their YouTube channel, The Ring Digital. I will link the video in the description of this video, so you guys could go check it out and watch it for yourself. But what I am going to use is I'm going to use the audio from that interview, and as Victor Conte makes each point when it comes to oxylofrene and talks about Billy Joe Saunders and his use of it, I'm kind of going to stop it and then explain what he's trying to say to you and elaborate on what he's saying to you and give you my take as well at the same time.
Of all things, Billy Joe Saunders was caught, well, not caught, he tested positive for a substance that no one knows of. It's not an anabolic steroid, it's a stimulant, and I always seem to be talking to you about something, about someone getting caught dirty. But before we talk about this, you know, I want to read something that Billy Joe did say back in April. Saunders branded Canelo Alvarez a cheat and insisted the Mexican should never box again over a failed drug test. I rated Canelo very high, but now he's down. He's gone down in my estimations so much I don't even rate him as a fighter at all. I don't agree with what he's done, and I think it's a disgrace for boxing. He said that, and now it's September 27th. He's 3 weeks out from his fight against Boo Boo, Demetrius Andrade. I mean, this is a title fight. He has the belt. The tables have turned. What are your thoughts? First of all, when you found out, what did Boo Boo think? Because this is just, your dreams are just shattered when you hear something like this.
Well, let me say that I had strong suspicions watching his last 2 fights before this fight with Boo Boo. Willie Monroe Jr., who I worked with, there was supposed to be testing, and there was no testing until he got to the UK on a Sunday, and they tested him on Tuesday, and they fought on a Saturday. So if you look at the pictures, he probably weighed 185, 190, and 30 days later he's weighing 160. So that seemed highly suspicious to me. And then the same thing with his next fight with David Lemieux in Canada. And, you know, he claimed that he'd been doing testing and so on. But once again, we see the chubby guy who turns into the skinny guy in 30 days. Seemed highly suspicious. So once the contract was negotiated, there was a clause, the Demetrius Andrade versus BJ Saunders bout sheet had a clause in it that if Matchroom requested Vada testing, that there would be Vada testing, but only if they requested.
So there was a clause in the contract for Demetrius Andrade versus Billy Joe Saunders that if Matchroom requested Vada testing, there would be Vada testing, which would assume to me, which would mean to me basically that you've agreed to follow the Vada testing procedures and rulings. And remember what I said at the beginning of the video, Vada consider oxylofrene a substance which is banned, for them, is banned out of competition and in competition. So, right there, Billy Joe Saunders is in breach of his contract with Demetrius Andrade.
Obviously, money is an issue. It costs $16,000 to $20,000 to have a testing pool for a couple months for both fighters before the fight. And so, to make sure that this happened, I agreed to sponsor this testing. So they both enrolled in Vada testing. And let me say that WADA testing, the World Anti-Doping Association testing, is considered the gold standard, but it is not. And the reason, what people have to understand, is that it's not very effective is because they have 2 types of testing, out of competition testing and in testing. So in between fights and on fight night. And what people don't realize is that the list of performance-enhancing substances that they test for in between fights is very limited.
I've linked the WADA page in the description of the video, so go and have a look at the prohibited list yourself, guys, in your own time, of course, which is what Victor Conte is referring to here.
Okay. You know, a lot of people don't know about the in competition and out of competition, and a lot of people have started writing about it. And before, the substance that we're talking about is oxylofrene. It's also methylphenephrine. Is that how I say
yes,
it? Yes,
methylphenephrine. People know this as ephedrine or ephedra, but years ago there was a product called Ripped Fuel by Twin Lab that was very popular, and of course has a weight loss product. But this is a very powerful and potent substance, tenfold more powerful than clenbuterol.
So Victor Conte has just stated that this substance, oxylofrene, is 10 times more powerful and potent, basically, than clenbuterol, which is what Canelo Alvarez tested positive for back in February. You know, and this is Billy Joe Saunders, the man who was calling Canelo Alvarez a drug cheat and he should be banned from boxing for life.
So Billy Joe Saunders saying that Canelo was taking this, it's like that's baby food and this is the steak, okay? So what he was taking opens up the air passageways. It was an inhaler that he was using. It's a central nervous system stimulant, gives you tremendous energy, increases speed, increases power, cuts weight. This is a boxer's dream drug.
This is a boxer's dream drug. It opens up the air passageways, meaning you can get more oxygen into your body, to your muscles. Yeah. So what's one of the things that, you know, boxers will have if they're having a hard fight, or if they're a boxer who moves and uses their feet a lot and uses the ring a lot, etc., a lot of movement, they're gonna, you know, the one thing they don't want to happen is to fatigue out. So if your body is able to take in more oxygen, it means you've got more energy to keep moving around the ring and outboxing your opponent, like you maybe did against, you know, David Lemieux, for example. Yeah. You know, this is Billy Joe Saunders. He's never been the fittest boxer in the world. Let's be honest. You know, it increases your power, your heart rate, all this sort of stuff. You know, he's basically saying that this is a boxer's dream drug. It gives you everything, increases your endurance, the lot.
So he was using something very potent on fight night. This is a prohibited substance, but in between competition, the UKAD, anti-doping in the UK, does not test for this. Vada does test for this. So when he signed this enrollment form with Vada, the prohibited substance list is there and given to him. This substance is on there. It's on the list for the NFL, Major League Baseball, NCAA, everybody year-round, not out of competition testing with a weak list like they do with WADA.
So what Victor Conte is basically saying there is, when Billy Joe Saunders signed up and gave his consent for Vada testing, he was given a prohibited list by Vada. He was given Vada's policies and procedures, the ban list, etc., and all of that, and this product, oxylafrine, was on there. So why did it show up in his system? Surely you're going to be looking at lists and saying, nope, I can't have that because Vada's going to catch me out. Which means Billy Joe Saunders was fully aware that he should not have been taking this product. And there's no excuse for it, really.
So apparently he and his trainer realized that this was a loophole that you could drive a Mack truck through, and they decided, here's a way to drop 25, 30 pounds in a short period of time, give you all kinds of energy and enhancement in training. And they tested him. The sample was collected on August the 30th. There is another sample, we believe, and we believe that's also going to come back positive as well. This substance clears the body in 24 hours.
So what Victor Conte is saying again is that Dominic Ingle and Billy Joe Saunders have clearly found a loophole. Yeah? Under UKAD and WADA, they know they can get away with using this very powerful but very dangerous drug, this performance enhancing drug, oxylafrine, because WADA and UKAD, do not test for this substance outside of competition. They only test for it on fight night, 12 hours before your fight, within 12 hours of your fight. But Vada, on the other hand, do test for it. So is this a case that Billy Joe Saunders and his trainer thought, well, we can always turn around and say, well, UKAD have tested us and UKAD say that, you know, it's okay. WADA say it's okay, so therefore we can use it, even though we're enrolled in VADA testing. Do you see what I'm saying? They found a loophole and they basically created a grey area, where it's the case of, do we ban Billy Joe Saunders or do we not? And that's what's going on right now. But the most important thing Victor Conte has said here is that this drug clears your system in 24 hours. Which means this is a boxer's dream drug. It gives you all these great benefits, which I've already stated to you. But not only that, it clears your system in 24 hours. You don't get tested for drugs every single day, for performance-enhancing drugs every single day, which means nine times out of 10, you're going to test clean and get away with it. And no one's going to know, be the wiser to it.
So we believe that he's been using this for a long time, and he has been tested, but they don't test for this substance, so he's been driving a Mack truck through this loophole.
And I have to agree with that, because UKAD and Vada, well, forget Vada, but UKAD do not test for this product, this substance, outside of competition. He's been getting away with it. All this dramatic weight loss we've been talking about. Oh, Billy Joe Saunders looks great. Billy Joe Saunders is focused. Billy Joe Saunders, he's showing some real discipline. You know? Billy Joe Saunders is in the gym every single day. You know, Billy Joe Saunders looked amazing against David Lemieux. He's cut the weight nicely. Blah, blah, blah. You know, you know what? This says it all.
So, I mean, it's not banned in the UK, so UK fighters could be using
it's banned on fight night.
On fight night, but I don't understand why all these governing bodies just don't have all the banned substances. Like, all the substances should be the same in every country, because UK boxers are going to fight in America and vice versa in all different countries. So it's essentially like stacking, or the wraps, the gloves. Why can't it just be one universal governing body for everything, especially all these substances? Because if you're saying it's a loophole, and now it can be a very big concern to boxers that say, ooh, I can legally take this without getting caught, and it's just like coffee times a million, or an inhaler for asthma. Why is it just, why aren't there any mandates, or why isn't anyone putting their foot down on this? This is ridiculous. Come on, Victor. This is getting so ridiculous.
But she makes a good point. You know, all these doping agencies, I totally agree with what the point she was making. All these doping agencies need to get on the same page. They all need to have the same rules, same procedures, same policies, and the same prohibited banned substance list. And be in agreement about it all. Because otherwise, yeah, she's right. Fighters will find a way to find loopholes and grey areas where they won't be punished when they failed drug tests. Simple as that. And the other thing I have to put out here is, my concern is, if UKAD don't test for this, how many boxers out there here in the UK are using oxylifrene? You know, we've always heard Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn saying, oh, we've got the best drug testing process in the world here in UKAD, because everyone has to sign up for drug testing if you want a British boxing license, blah, blah, blah. But, well, here's this drug they don't test for, which is 10 times more powerful than clenbuterol, and is considered a boxer's dream that clears out your system in 24 hours. So how many UK boxers are currently using oxylifrene? It's worrying.
There needs to be an international governing body that establishes what the tests are going to be, and they need to be 24/7, 365. All the top 10 at least in each weight division. Once they're in contention to fight for a title, they need to go into a pool that's year-round, not a couple of months out from a fight, and then have 4 to 6 months, or even up to a year if you only fight once a year, to use all the drugs you like and then enter this testing pool. Because some of these drugs, the gains when you use anabolic steroids or testosterone, they carry over months and months later. You have the benefit in the ring. So yes, there's a tremendous need for uniformity. Everybody needs to be doing the same type of testing. The objective of boxing is bodily harm, so it's not running faster than the lane and the guy next to you, or hitting a ball over a fence more times than the next guy. It's about brain damage. So yes, there needs to be more stringent testing. The model is Vada. They have the best testing in the world. It's better than WADA. Yes, they use WADA accredited labs to do the testing, but you have to select the right tests. You have to know when to test.
But
You have to know what to test for.
Because I remember we were talking, it's a urine sample that boxers do. I go, why can't they just attach a hair sample along with the urine sample when you do the test? Is it that expensive? Because I hear boxers can't afford it, so they won't test, and it gets too late for them to test, and then it just happened.
My comment has everything to do with who's actually leading the competitive world in terms of drug testing, and it's racehorses. And they now, both two states, New Mexico and Texas, have incorporated hair testing for clenbuterol, but you can test any and all of the anabolic steroids and other substances. So they've done enough of this testing now. Initially, you have to set it up and establish the method and the reference range and so on, but the charge to test a hair sample for clenbuterol is $85. So the cost is not that great, and the value where urine maybe gives you a week or two back in terms of exposure to substances, you may get 3 to 6 months back with a hair sample. So it is credible, and it is a scientifically valid sample type, and I would like to see that used when they collect blood and urine, also collect a hair sample.
They're basically talking about hair follicle testing here, okay? Which, as you heard Victor Conte, with a urine test, you can go back a week. But with a hair follicle test, you can go back 6 months. Half a year. Okay? To see what's in your system. And it tests up. And you could test the hair for everything and anything, basically, is what he's saying there. That you could potentially be taking, which is considered a naughty drug. Yeah? To help your performance. Now, the hair follicle testing, which I talked about to you guys earlier on with Canelo Alvarez, was done out of protocol. So that's why I don't rate that test. That's why I don't believe, or that's why I still question Canelo Alvarez and his failed drug test, because that wasn't done according to protocol. Okay? But he's also stated here it costs $85 to do a hair follicle test, which, from what I understand, is a lot cheaper than a blood and urine test in terms of a cost. So why aren't you doing it? Part of me thinks is that you'll be catching a lot of boxers if you started doing hair follicle tests. Yeah, if you start saying to boxers, all right, we're going to do blood, urine, and now we're starting to introduce a hair follicle test, there's going to be a lot of boxers out there who are worried. You're going to start getting worried. That's the way I see it. So whether that's the organizations, the boxing organizations selling, like the WBC with their Vada clean boxing program, telling them don't test for hair, we don't want a hair follicle test done, just do urine and blood. Because these boxing organizations aren't dumb either. They know a lot of their fighters are on performance enhancing drugs. For me, there's got to be some, and yeah, you could say, I'm being a bit of a conspiracy theorist here, but come on, this sport. As much as we love this sport, we know how much corruption there is in boxing when it comes to things like this.
Well, let's put it in perspective. When you enroll in Vada, you sign an agreement that you're going to be tested 24/7, 365 from the date you sign until the fight. They give you a list of all of the prohibited substances. This substance was on the list. There was a contract. He agreed to this as part of the terms and the conditions of a fight, just like being a little bit over in weight if it's a non-title fight, or the types of gloves, or whatever other terms and conditions that are there. It's all spelled out in the contract. So he agreed to this. He agreed that this is a prohibited substance, and he wouldn't take it, and he took it.
Like I said earlier, breach of contract. You signed a contract giving your consent to Vada testing for this fight, which means you agreed to their procedures, their rulings, etc., etc., which means you agreed that oxylafrine, which is on their banned substance list, Vada's banned substance list, oxylafrine is a banned substance in and out of competition, therefore you will not use it. So, technically speaking, you've cheated, and you should be facing a suspension, a ban, etc., or something along that line.
You have a number of parties and entities involved. UK Anti-Doping, the WBO, the Massachusetts State Athletic Commission, and Vada. okay? Vada doesn't adjudicate. They do the testing and they give the results to all parties involved. It's really up to the state commission, but my understanding is that he doesn't even have a license in Massachusetts to fight yet, so there's nothing that they can do about this. Okay, so he's claiming, and UKAD is claiming, well, on our list, we don't test for this. We do on fight night, but we don't in between competition. So we've been testing him, and he's been getting away for it. That's like saying, well, you can drive by and the speed limit's 65, but we're going to put the radar gun down on these days, and this day we're going to put it back up. So it's okay on Sunday, but it's not okay on Monday. So I think that their rules, I think that they are governed by WADA rules. You've got this gigantic loophole that athletes are taking advantage of, and this is a very powerful, potent drug, 10 times more powerful than clenbuterol. So all these things that he's saying about Canelo, all of them apply to him. So his people, apparently his trainer gave it to him. You know, you don't get an albuterol or a, this is synephrine type of inhaler without going to a doctor. Does he have a prescription? Let's ask him to produce that prescription, because you don't go buy this at GNC. So there's a lot of questions that don't have answers. There's a lot of conflicts of interest here. Anytime you've got an organization that's getting a percentage of the fight purse and money that comes in, of course, they don't want to see this happen, because they lose the fight, they lose the money as well. But bottom line is this: he signed an agreement to abide by the VADA rules. He knew, and the list was there, it was on it, and he was taking it, and he continued to take it, and he got busted, okay? So he violated that agreement. That much we know. What's going to happen, and are they going to fine him, or what's going to happen? That's yet to be determined. There's a negotiation going on now. I think the fight should possibly go on if he agrees not to take that substance and honor that agreement from now until fight night. You know, ultimately, this is why we implemented the testing, because he was highly suspect. Let me also say that this particular substance can cause mild psychosis. His behavior is such that he's doing such crazy stuff. You know, all of the above point to this guy's got some serious problems, and I believe he's not taking this at a prescribed dosage, but in a supraphysiological dose that's causing him to drop 30 pounds in a month. So I think there's abuse going on. I think there needs to be a further investigation. I think maybe Boo Boo needs to get some money out of the deal too for tolerating all of this violation of the contract, but we'll have to see what they negotiate.
So I guess that answers my question from earlier on. The one that Billy Joe Saunders is claiming to be using, which contains the oxylafrine, is a prescribed nasal spray. Has he got a prescription from his GP to prove that he is using it for medical reasons and he required it? And is he sticking to the dosage? No, he can't. Yeah? Not only that, he says it causes mild psychosis. Billy Joe Saunders is acting a bit crazy lately. I think you all agree. Like, I know he's a bit nutty in general, but like, he's a bit out there at the moment in terms of what he's doing on social media. He was recently brought up in front of the British Boxing Border Control for that thing with the lady who's a crackhead who slapped that guy. You know what I'm on about. Yeah, I didn't really watch it. I heard about it. I thought, I'm not listening to that shit or even watching that shit. Okay, but yeah, questions have to be answered. And not only that, he's answered the question about, well, because he hasn't got a license by the Massachusetts State Athletics Commission as of yet, he's also saying they can't do jack shit about it. They can't actually effectively ban him yet. So that means the best that we can hope for is Billy Joe Saunders may get a fine. He may have to agree to rigorous testing, kind of like Canelo Alvarez, and he needs to stay clean and not use any substances whatsoever, especially this oxylafrine, which basically means he gets away with it.
The anti-doping movement is carrying forward the pebble that Vada dropped in the pond in 2011 are now crashing waves on the beach. All the big fighters, Joshua Povetkin recently and others, let's have more people enroll. We do need to look out for the health and safety of the athletes, and there definitely needs to be a more level playing field.
Totally agree with Victor Conti there. You know, these doping agencies, state athletics commissions, UCAD, they all need to get on the same page. Boxing organisations, they all need to get on the same page if they want to clean up the sport, if they're really serious about it. But part of me thinks that they're not, because otherwise you throw in that hair follicle test along with the blood and urine, wouldn't you? But you know full well there's going to be a lot of boxers out there who may end up testing positive because of the hair follicle test and stuff like that. So, like I said, you know what? Doping is a very large grey area in boxing, and in my opinion, you know, we're never going to clean up the sport unless these guys get it together. So the last thing to talk about is, why isn't Demetrius Andrade kicking up a fuss about this failed drug test from Billy Joe Saunders? Well, I'm going to play you a small little vid now, and this is what Demetrius Andrade had to say about Billy Joe Saunders' failed drug test.
Demetrius, yesterday news broke that your opponent, Billy Joe Saunders, failed a voluntary drug test, putting your fight in jeopardy. What are your thoughts about what transpired the last 24 hours?
Yeah, it's crazy and unfortunate that, you know, in order to try to beat me, you have to take enhancement drugs. But, you know, we're going to take one step at a time, but pay attention to the protocols. And from my end, you know, I'm willing to fight and just put more fuel in my fire to whoop his ass.
Well, let's talk about that. You both come in undefeated, 28 knockouts between the two of you. Can I get a prediction on how you see that fight going?
I mean, after what's going on and what he's doing to try to get the edge, oh yeah, I'm definitely coming in to kill.
Now, some people might say, hats off to Demetrius Andrade. You know, he's still taking a fight. He's going to show that cheat Billy Joe Saunders, etc., etc. Yeah, that's all great. That doesn't help the sport. Because if you're a cheat, you should be banned from the sport. It's simple as that. That's it. No ifs, no buts about it. Suspended, banned, whatever. You should be punished for it. And heavily fined for it. Billy Joe Saunders is going to go into this fight, whether he wins, loses or draws, and make a couple of $1 million from this fight. So, hey, I cheated, but guess what? It's alright, Billy, we're going to reward you with a couple of mil here. Here's your payday. Oh, and he still may be the WBO, you know, middleweight champion of the world if he wins the fight as well. Meanwhile, he's been cheating in order to gain the advantage over his opponent the whole time. So, and another thing is, Demetrius Andrade, look, no offense to Demetrius Andrade, he is a really good fighter, a really talented fighter. I was looking forward to this fight a lot. You know, and it's disappointing to see what's happened, but Demetrius Andrade, at this moment in time, he's not well known among the casuals. Us hardcores will know who Demetrius Andrade is, but he's trying to, you know, push his career on. He's trying to get into the limelight, into the spotlight, and that'll be the main reason why, you know, he's willing to still fight Billy Joe Saunders. Let's be honest. It's desperation to go up against who's a considered elite level fighter with a world title at middleweight, and that could really bring Demetrius Andrade's name into the fold with the other names in the middleweight division, like Canelo, like the Triple Gs, like the Jermall Charlos. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So in a sense, if he was a bigger name like Triple G, for example, Demetrius Andrade, he probably would be kicking up a fuss. But he's not, because part of me thinks, you know, he's desperate for that limelight as well, which also doesn't help, because boxers who have opponents who test positive should take a stance as well, because it's the best thing for the sport. That's the way I look at it anyway. But look, in short, my opinion is simple as this. I don't believe Billy Joe Saunders and his nasal spray excuse. As far as I'm concerned, he is a cheat. Yeah, I don't care about this in-out competition ruling. As far as I'm concerned, once you start training camp for a fight, you are competing against your opponent, like I said at the beginning. And if you're taking something during that period right up to fight night, then you are a cheat. But not only that, even if it's in between fights and you're training and you're taking it, you're still a cheat. Yeah, a performance enhancing drug is a performance enhancing drug, especially one that is as potent as this. You heard Victor Conte, it's 10 times more powerful than clenbuterol. That says it all. Billy Joe Saunders, all I'm going to say to Billy Joe Saunders is, if your take is that Canelo Alvarez should have been banned from the sport of boxing for taking clenbuterol, you need to be banned from the sport of boxing for taking oxylofrene, yeah, and cheating the system. But at the same time, you can't blame fighters as well for that, because these boxing doping agencies, yeah, these drug doping agencies, these boxing organisations, these state athletics commissions, UCAD, etc., all need to get on the same page, because they're not. So they're making it easier for fighters to cheat. And the biggest concern for me is how many UK fighters are currently, taking advantage of this loophole. How many UK fighters are currently taking oxylofrene? I wonder. Because they're not being tested for it, I could tell you that much. Right? Listen, that's just my take on it. As always, guys, like, share and subscribe. Until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.